Good evening. It is February 14th. It's Valentine's Day here in sunny Charleston, South Carolina. It's not that sunny. It's been in the 30s all day. It's cold. But Tuesday, 60 degrees. I don't want to upset you. Welcome to the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. We're here for you. We look at life through a biblical lens. We generally solve all the world's problems in, 2 hours or less. I want to welcome you to Valentine's Day. Did you do anything for your sweetie? We don't, I don't know, Valentine's Day doesn't seem to be as big a deal as maybe it once was, or maybe it's just because I'm getting old and I don't watch a whole lot of TV or something, but it's, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to have the same cachet as some of the other holidays. It's a good holiday. It's always a sweet holiday if you want to make it that. And I hope you had a halfway decent holiday. I hope that you are also paying attention, that you have your email address firmly on file here at the Bible Forum so that you can get an email. We send these out every week. It tells you a little bit about what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be talking about. Tonight we're going to talk about the 8 signs, 8 things that have to happen before the Great Tribulation begins. We've already seen 7. We're going to talk a little bit about Israel and all of this. Israel came out this week in a published report saying they were going to build a wall completely around their country. They have a lot of that built. They have it down between them and Egypt. There's a lot built down there. Of course, they've got the whole thing around the West Bank, but they're looking at a siege mentality. We're also going to look at the brain. There's a study came out this week that indicates that when you form memories, you're actually changing your brain. I know some of you are going to say, I knew that, the cells and all of it. This is different. It's a little different. It's not all that spectacular. The Pope came out, or at least the Roman Catholic Church came out this week, talking about a super confessor. What's a super confessor? There's going to be several thousand of these guys running around the countryside, and they have power that ordinary confessors do not. And you realize a confessor is a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. We'll talk a little bit about that. We have in our society a uniqueness. I guess other societies have this sort of thing. I don't know. But in our society, apparently, only those who, I guess, have the power, if that's a good way to put it, and it's really not, but to span the political, the social, the religious worlds, those that seem to have the power in the sense that they are the status quo or they always have been, they're the only ones that can be judgmental. Have you ever noticed that? Anytime you step up to point out that somebody else is losing a step here or they're off the beam somewhere, you become the problem. We'll talk a little bit about what that means and how that all works out. And we'll also talk a little mysticism, the Mahdi, and the trigger event for all that is concerned with Islam. We talk about the Great Tribulation. We talk about the trigger event that needs to occur for the tribulation to actually be a reality. But the same thing is happening over on the Islamic side. And so we'll talk about that. Tony Perkins came out this week just in the last day or two. I didn't get a chance to really respond to it, write about anything, or deal with it on any level except to say to you, Tony Perkins. Tony Perkins is the head of the Family Research Council, and he has made a bold prediction although it's not so bold, but it seems bold until you think about it. He's saying that if we don't get this election right, we're not likely to see another one. If we don't get this presidential election right, we may never vote on a president again. You think he's right? I think he's righter than you know. I think he's closer to the truth than you can imagine. I was struck this week that our president came out publicly and he made statement of the fact that Americans are better today financially than they were when he took office. Significantly better is the way he put it. And it was like 20 minutes later, probably the next day, that the report came out from the economic circles indicating that the economy has given back everything it's earned since 2007. Given it all back just in the last 5 months. You've been watching the stock market? Been watching the money? It's going down. President stands up and says, we're better off than we've ever been. The economic people come out the very next day saying, not true. Not true. We live in a very different kind of world. I'm not sure. Have you been listening at all to what the experts are saying, or maybe you've read it somewhere, what they're saying about or how they are defining love? Read anything you want almost, except a conservative, religious, kind of publication, and you'll hear people talking about love, and it's a lot of different contexts that they'll do it, and not one of them gets it right. Have you noticed that? It's Valentine's Day. How do you express love to your wife, to your husband, to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, to your mother? How do you express love to another person? And what is love in your life? Everybody that talks about love talks about what I get. And the Bible never talks about that. The Bible talks about what you give. In fact, the Bible defines love, the highest form of love, as giving, expecting nothing in return. Is that the way it works in your relationship? I did I guess it would be a devotional kind of a thing just this past week in honor of Valentine's Day and, coming up and all that. Talking to husbands and wives, what can you say to these people? If you've been in my men's Bible study, you know what I told them. How does a man show love to his wife? Well, there's a list about this long of things that you could put on it, things that she would put on it. But how would you boil it all down? What would be the essence of showing love to your wife? Do you know what it is? It's putting the toilet seat down. That's simple. Put the toilet seat down. Now, why do I say that? Well, because men notoriously don't do that. And it isn't something a woman goes around complaining about every day. She might have complained about it at some point, but she's given up because it's not going to change anything. But it's a very real issue in her life, especially in the middle of the night. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how to, that's where you start. And you don't say anything, you just do it. And you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it. And pretty soon you'll get so used to doing it, you won't even think about it. She'll love you. You're giving, you're not getting anything back, but you're giving. And that's how people love. You love your wife? Antonin Scalia died this week, just the other day. Supreme Court Justice. They say he's held that position longer than anybody. Interesting man, Scalia. Went out to Texas to an exclusive ranch for a party. Some people put together. It may have been for him, or I don't know. Had a meal party Friday night and woke up dead on Saturday. Did he get a warning? Doesn't look like it. Don't know exactly why he died. They said it was natural causes. But there you are. He didn't know it was coming. But you ever listen to Scalia when he talks? Love to listen to trial lawyers. Listen to anybody who is trained in trial lawyership or has actually done it. The vast majority of these people have a brain that works like a machine. They see things very clearly and logically and empirically, and this is this and this is that, and they don't get confused about some of the other little things. They say, well, that happened and this, then that's it. It's logic. Scalia did stuff like that. And of course, this weekend we've seen a lot of little blurbs and people have talked and written about him. But I saw one maybe it was just today, I've forgotten. Somebody played a clip asking him about, I don't know whether it was the death penalty or Roe v. Wade or whatever it might have been. And he just went right to the heart of it. And he told you, if you were listening, or anybody, he answered the question the same way a theologian answers a question about what the Bible has to say. I had never heard anybody do this before, but you've heard me do it all the time. He went back to language. How do you know, or how do you comprehend, how do you interpret what you have just read? Do you take it in the context of your life and on the circumstances that are going on? You must. But if you don't take it in the context in which it was written, you really don't understand it. And that's what he said. What stuck in my mind was the death penalty. Is the electric chair cruel and unusual punishment? Because I don't know if the Constitution says it, but our documents, our philosophy of life in this country is that we're not in favor of cruel and unusual punishment. Is the death penalty, the gas chamber, the electric chair, are these things cruel and unusual punishment? And the answer comes back, yeah, no, maybe. So which is it? Scalia answered the question and said, it's whatever the writers thought when it was being discussed. Whatever that generation and those people, as they were discussing it, the one who wrote it and the one who voted in favor of it, what did they believe when they read those words? Because those words only mean what they meant in the context of when they were given. And what did they do? They instituted hanging. Capital punishment in the United States, according to the Constitution or according to our law, our legal system, is you take a man out and you hang him. And we say, oh, that's terrible. You know what happens when people get hung? All kinds of gruesome things happen. We actually came up with an electric chair or gas because that was too barbaric. Huh? It's a contextual thing. So is the electric chair a barbaric? Well, you might think it is, but the founders didn't. The Constitution that drives us didn't go there. And that's why you have people today, some of them running for office, some of them already in office, who hate your Constitution. They want it to go away. It stands in their way. The Bible's the same kind of a thing. It only means what it meant to the person who wrote it. And until you get into that person's head, you don't know what it means. And you get into their head through grammar. The words on the page, definitions, tense of verb, preposition, how they structured this thing. And you back up and you say, well, what did they mean by that word? We have words in our vocabulary, our vernacular, that mean several different things. And we have words today that were used 300 years ago, but they don't mean the same. You got to go back. You got to look at what the author thought. That's the only thing it means. We're going to miss a Scalia in the court. We'll have to see how that all plays out. But you know what's going to happen. You need to be praying. Tony Perkins says, if we don't get this election right, we may never have another one. What happened this week to bolster what Jesus said in Matthew 24 about end times situations? I told you as we began that there are 7 things that have already happened. 8 is the last thing in leading up to what the Bible refers to as the Great Tribulation. A friend of mine who's a Jewish missionary, travels the world talking to people and to Jews, wrote to me and said, I'd be interested in what your 7 things are. And I wrote back and he said, can I use that? I said, if I get residuals, think about it. You know anything about your Bible? You know anything about eschatology? Israel has to be back in the land. There needs to be a global government in place. There needs to be a global computer system for the 666. There needs to be a global religious system. There needs to be financial chaos on a global scale. There needs to be a Western Confederation of Nations. There needs to be these other players that the Bible talks about from the north, from the south, from the neighborhood around Jerusalem. What do we have today? We have Russia coming to the aid of Syria. We are trying to depose Assad as king over Syria. Russia is in there trying to strengthen him. Benghazi was all about gun running to the Syrian rebels. We wanted Assad out. Russia wants him in. Turkey and Saudi Arabia popped up this week saying that they're thinking about getting into the fray in Syria against Russia. Persia, we call it Iran, is involved in the Middle East. She finances Hezbollah and maybe Hamas as well, fomenting all kinds of chaos in the region, destabilizing it. Russia and our own U.S. Secretary of State both spoke this week of World War III. Seems we cannot get involved in Russia. We, the United States, we cannot get into Russia without risking American soldiers killing Russians. And Russia's not happy that Turkey and Saudi Arabia are talking about getting in on the other side, coming to the aid of their Sunni brethren. It's all about Sunni Shia with these people. Politics aside, they look out for their own. Can you say kaboom? We have Jesus talking about all of these things in Matthew chapter 24. What is it? And 25. But what is it that he says? We'll look at that a little bit later on. I talked to you about being judgmental. Just a couple of decades ago, it was almost unanimously agreed that Christians shouldn't be putting other Christians in a bad light over what they might have said or what they might have done. Many a writer has come forth with the wrath of the brotherhood or the sisterhood to decry people like me who would stand up and say, Johnny over there or Billy or Mary, they're wrong. Not allowed to say that. Today, the heresies, the ecclesiastical silliness is so pervasive that it's the normal. And so now the finger pointing is coming from the other side, but for a very different reason. We'll talk about it. Do you know anything about Islam? We've heard the stories. You know about the Mahdi, don't you? The 12th Imam. We're going to talk about what that's about, because that's a trigger event. Islamists, Muslims, are waiting for their Mahdi to appear. They link him in some way with Jesus. He's similar. But the Bible's Jesus is going to be beholden to the Mahdi. And before this person, this Imam, can appear, the people, according to their prophecies, will be reprimanded by Allah for their disobedience. And it'll come in the form of a fire that appears in the sky, a redness that covers the whole area, if not the world. According to them, it will swallow up Baghdad and Kufa. These are in Iraq. People's blood will cover their destroyed houses. Death will occur among the people, and fear will come over the people of Iraq, from which they will have no rest. And this is why Iran needs a nuclear program. What? Yeah. Only thing I can figure is that they set off bombs and it'll blow, smoke, air, pressure, flumes, I don't know, back against Iraq and maybe create a backfire in some way and push all this back or stop it. I don't know. There'll be something going on. But that's what they say. At the same time, there'll be an insurgence of the Sufyani, a descendant of Abu Sufyan, who will be one of Muhammad's enemies. And this will start in Palestine and Jordan. Now, when they talk about Palestine, they're talking about Israel. And his reign of tyranny will span the entire Middle East from Iraq to Egypt. And there will be a loud call from the sky to announce the hidden Imam's reappearance. He'll come at a time when there's great confutation, intense disputes, and violent deaths. But before Imam Mahdi emerges, there will be this intertribal fight. In the same year, the Hajis, those who have completed a Hajj, when they go to Mecca, the Hajis themselves will be looted, presumably on the way back or maybe on the way to, and a battle will erupt near Medina in which many people will be killed. The Euphrates will disclose a mountain of gold. And then there will be an emergence of the Sufyani, vicious people who will wreak havoc on the region. There's a lot more. But we'll talk about that later on. Stay with us. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've still got an hour and a half to go. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Lent. Stay with me.